It's 6 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. First item will be roll call.
Brown,
Here.
Cox,
Here.
Fritz,
Here.
Gerke,
Here.
Meehan,
Here.
Nail.
Here.
Take a motion to approve the agenda. Yeah, updated the agenda before because of the time crunch on proposal being offered later. Had to have a closed session.
So the only change is the number 5.
Yes.
I still move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Everybody's had a chance to look over the previous meeting's minutes. Are there any corrections?
Mr. Chairman, on the 3-2, it's on page 3 of our handout. There was on the roll call, Mr. Cox wasn't listed on the roll call, but he was obviously here because he voted.
Are there any other corrections?
That's it. We got a lot of minutes.
Yes.
So make sure we got the right page here. You said on page 3.
Yes,
Okay, and that was the closed meeting minutes?
it was.
Okay, and so to back up one, page 2, was that considered a regular meeting or a special call?
This is the regular, the
Was it
page 2.
Yeah, page 2, it says regular, but wasn't that a special
Yeah.
call?
Yes,
meeting?
yes.
So we would need to change that.
Right.
Okay.
Special meeting.
Um,
Are there any other corrections? I'll stand approved as presented with those corrections.
So we were just looking at March the 2nd then? And I apologize, but we just got a lot of minutes here, so I'm just trying to make sure I get the right
And then there's
pages.
the 9th. There's
The 15th. One,
page 4.
yeah, page 4, okay, and 5,
Yes.
and then 6 was closed, and 7 on March the 15th. So wasn't that also a special meeting versus a regular meeting? So we need to change that, right? I think I'm done getting confused, so we can move on.
It'll be stand approved with those corrections. Public comment, was any, there was none sent in? We'll move on to officers report. Eric is under the weather this evening, so Roy is going to get his report.
Good evening, everyone.
Roy?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Haley's here. Maybe we can give her her presentation. And then she's welcome to stay or she needs to leave. Hey, right?
Yes.
Yes. We have. Letter from the board to show our appreciation for your accomplishments. And then certificate.
Awesome. That's great. That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. much.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
Okay, Roy.
All right, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, I'm gonna run through this. I gave you guys copies tonight. I know you guys haven't had a chance to really look at it. The first thing I'll hit on is major equipment. All the remaining trade-in ventilators from last year that we purchased have been sent back. Bothwell had used them during the pandemic. They ran short of ventilators over there, and they used them mainly to help get patients to and from procedures. Once the need for them subsided over at Bothwell, they got them back to us, and we got them sent back to Zoll, and so that is complete. It's just a great example of the teamwork between Bothwell and PCAD and our Zoll vendor in a time of need. The unit mileages, I don't know that these are updated. The one thing I'll hit on that's not on here is the fact that we do have a couple trucks with some issues needing repair, nothing major, nothing too awfully expensive. And 2 of them are going to be leaving this summer when the 2 new ambulances show up anyway. The north exterior bay walls have been pulled out. The chief and Mr. Newsom actually pulled them out. The 5 large windows in the back, all the masonry work's been completed. We're waiting for some drier weather to seal them up. We've been noticing a little bit of leaking, but nothing too terrible. The replacement appliances at Station 2 have been installed. New refrigerator, new stove that was budgeted for this year. We discontinued the ice machine rental out there since the new refrigerator has an ice maker. And they seem to be working well and look really nice out there. Other than that, the PCJC, he didn't have anything to report. I don't have anything to report other than continue to work on updating some operating guidelines for our response plans and stuff like that will kind of change a little bit with the new dispatch center when it's up and running. Other than that, I don't really have anything else to report. I know I kind of flew through that. Do you guys have any questions?
Yes, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman. Deputy Chief, you said something about you discontinued the ice machine rental at Station 2. The new refrigerator has an ice maker. Does it also have one of those filters, purifiers for water, to where you can get water out of the door and that sort of thing?
Yes, yes.
So are we still having water delivered out there in addition to that?
It does. So there is water delivered. There's not water delivered out there. There is a water system out there. It's got the water softener and then a filter on the building itself. We don't actually get the 5 gallons of water delivered.
Okay, we don't have a Culligan service that goes out there and takes care of that.
We do.
So I compliment you for having the ice machine taken out, since the refrigerator has one. But so do we still need the Culligan water conditioner if we have a filter on the refrigerator and you have the Culligan system overall purified?
I think that for the hard water that we have out there, it probably helps with the water softener. And then it also helps with filtered water for, cooking and stuff like that. I could look into that further. We just got the stuff installed and got the ice machine picked up. So, I mean, we're not too awfully deep into that. So we can see.
Yeah, we have that at all of our stations. We have the Culligan water system, and that's what the bill is that you see. We don't have water delivered anywhere. It's just the water system.
Any other questions? Thank you, Roy. We'll move on to the CFO report. Jamie?
Good evening. How are you all tonight? We've got a lot of stuff in here, so we're going to kind of jump around. We're going to start on page 26 for our ground emergency medical transportation Medicaid cost report. So 26 is the first page of that. That's the certification that we say that's what our expenses and revenue was for this fiscal period, which was July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. I'm not going to go through all the details unless somebody has questions about the details. These are all of our expenses on pages 27 and 28. And then there's a breakdown between emergency medical response expense and non-emergency medical response expense. So the only thing we have that's really non-emergency medical expense is some of our administrative wages. So those are allocated based on hours. And then if you look at page 36, there's a list of items that are disallowed for our cost report. So our ambulance billing, that's disallowed because it's done on a percentage basis. The 2020 fringe, because that's for July and we paid it in June. The donation that was made to DMAT for the state fair is a disallowed expense, as well as our MOEMSEC pooled funds and MOEMSEC admin fee.
2507 Anderson Avenue, have a male subject with a laceration to the head. 2507 Anderson Avenue, 1810.
And then if you'll flip over to page 39, that is where the settlement calculations are done. And this is just for Medicaid. We put everything in for the year and then it's allocated out based on our Medicaid runs for the year. Actually, our transports, not our runs, but our transports. So you'll see here on column 3, line 8, 982 fee for service Medicaid transports is what we had for that fiscal period. And then if you look down a little bit further on page 9, you can see that our average cost per ambulance transport was $861.21. And then if you look down a little bit further, you'll see that our total revenue from those transports was $628,669. If you do the math on that, our revenue on those was about $640 and our cost was $861. So the difference in cost is $221. So our costs are higher than our reimbursements for Medicaid is what this report is showing, which we knew, but that's why we do this report. Then if you look at line 13, that gives us our net cost, $217,000. And then it's broke up to our federal share and our non-federal share. So the non-federal share, the $74,701.21, that's the amount that we'll pay over to the state. And then our net will be around the $142,000. We'll pay a percentage to the state for admin fees on top of that non-federal share. And they haven't told us what that amount is yet. Any questions on any of that?
Mr. Chairman, yes, Mrs. Luberine, we have some relatively new board members and we do this report would you just explain that very briefly of why we do the report?
So this report is to report our costs versus our reimbursement. And then there is a federal law that allows the state with this report to get this additional amount, that $217,000. And then we receive $142,000 of that. So it's additional reimbursements to cover our costs. We still won't cover our costs for Medicaid calls because of the amount the state gets. So, but that is why we do it. Additional revenue for the district.
And a follow-on question, if I would, to go back on page 36, the annual ambulance billing percentage, 152,000. You know, that's the only way that I'm familiar that collection works. Is there any other way of paying for collections so that would not be a part of the exempt piece here?
If we had done it in-house, if our billing was in-house, then those expenses would be allowed.
I see, okay.
Which we've discussed in the past, and the board had chose not to do that, but that was one thing that would be allowed for this report.
And just to keep in mind, we'll be doing a Medicare cost report. I don't know what it's going to look like yet, but similar to this for 2022. So it won't happen until 2023, but we'll be doing this just to report data to CMS. We won't be getting any additional reimbursements, but they're just collecting that data to figure out how much ambulance service costs and how much they need to increase our reimbursement to get us to cost.
And then one last thing, and then donations of $5,000. Was there any other way to work that to where that wouldn't be considered a donation? I mean, we were participating in a service out there, which was an extension of what we do here. So to me, I really didn't look at that as a donation. It was more of a participating fee. Rather than just, like donating to the Red Cross or something, I mean, that would be different.
Well, they requested donations and that was the donation we made. We also donated, I don't know if we donated an ambulance that year, but generally we'll donate an ambulance. We've got, medical supplies and other things that get donated because those are things we would use if we ran those calls. But this one was an actual donation that they requested. Any other questions on the GET? So this is those FRA slides that I don't know if that was last board meeting or the meeting before. And if you need them, I can provide them, but it goes through in detail how this all works and why it works and gives you all the laws on how this works. There's several states that do this now to bring more funding into the states.
Amy,
Yes, sir.
do you have any projections or any understanding of what might happen to this reporting and our status if Medicaid expansion were to occur in Missouri?
I don't, because I don't know, what percentage of people that use our service would actually qualify for Medicaid. So I don't. If Medicaid is expanded, or when, I guess I should say, when Medicaid is expanded, these fee-for-service numbers might increase, but there's also Medicaid that's managed care that doesn't count in these numbers. So this is just the standard Medicaid. This isn't the fee-for-service, the managed care, the managed care Medicaid portions. Any other questions on GMT? All right, so now we'll flip back to page 9. Our sales tax receipts. So for the year, we're up about 66,000. That's 9.06%. I went through and did some calculations, and of that 9.06%, less than 1%, so 0.97% is from an increase in sales. The remainder 8% is due to the rate being raised back up to 0.5 cents. Anybody have any questions on that? Okay. Page 10. So this is a report I provide you guys annually to show you what was billed, what was written off, the net amounts billed. So the contractual write-offs, if you look at the top of the page, the amount billed, that's just what it is, the amount we bill. Contractual write-offs are the amounts we're required to write off. That's for Medicaid and Medicare. You get to our net amounts billed, which was about 4.5 million. And then our amounts collected was 2.8 million last year. So it was a collection percentage of about 38%. So for every dollar we billed, we received about 38 cents. Our net collection percentage, so that's the amount after those contractual write-offs, is 63.38% for last year. You can see we had 6,310 invoices generated
So our average collected per transport was $455.61. Now, this is for a calendar year 2020, where that GEMT was for July 19 through June of 20. So the numbers are a little bit off from each other because expenses were different. Our average billed per transport is right at $1,200 for last year, and our average cost per transport is $966. And that average cost per transport does not include any capital. That's just our straight expenses. It doesn't include anything that we purchased. So we purchased vents, we purchased Lucas devices. There was a lot of things we purchased for the public health emergency that's not included in that average cost per transport. So our cost per transport after reimbursement is about $510. So our costs exceed our reimbursement by about $500 per transport. Some of that is due to the fact that we don't get paid for every transport. And we also don't get paid for every call. So we might go on a call, but if we get refused for some reason, we don't get paid to go on that call. So that's got to factor in there too. So if you do the math, basically just the 510 times the 6310, you get our annual cost in excess of reimbursement is about $3.2 million. So that is why we have the sales tax in place. I also put in here our accounts receivable. As of 2/28, it's about $8 million. Now that's since the beginning of the service because we've never written anything off. So you can see we've got more in receivables than we billed for the year. And these numbers are all based on the billing company reports as far as collections. There's always a little bit of timing difference sometimes. Each month we have certain things that we've received that the billing company doesn't have, or the billing company has said we've had, and it hasn't cleared the bank until the next month. So there's always a little bit of timing difference there. Any questions on any of that?
Yes.
Yeah, on invoices generated, is that the number, would that be the same as the number of people that we service?
That would be, no, because we have, sometimes we have multiple transports for the same patient. So it's not actually the number of people, but that's the number of transports that we billed for.
Okay, so these are when we have somebody in the ambulance going somewhere.
Yes, when we've transported them, yeah.
Yes.
Jamie, do we have any way of estimating or understanding our cost when we do not transport or we do not have anything that could correlate to reimbursement? Because very often we make runs that we are refused, or whatever reason, we don't get a chance to touch base with as far as a reimbursement.
Yeah, so we would just need to take, if you wanted to know the average cost per run, we would just need to take the difference. Take our cost, divide them by our number of runs. I don't have that number on this page because this was just dealing with billing, but I can get that number for you.
Right, but I mean, that's something that does exist. It's probably not a huge amount, but it's there. So, I mean, it's an expense, it's gasoline, it's everything going down the road, so.
Well, it would be quite an expense because I think we had, Roy helped me here. I think we had 8,000 calls last year, somewhere around there. So, I mean, there's
There's
17.
closer to 9,000 calls, but
Okay.
not all those are transports, obviously, but.
Right. So, you've got quite a few calls that there was no payment on, or we couldn't even bill. So yeah, we're at 2,700 runs that we didn't even get a chance to bill for because we didn't transport the patient. And that could be, we get called to a car accident, we get called to a fire, we get called, there's lots of things that happen that the ambulance goes on that there's not a transport. Any other questions on these billing amounts?
Thank you, Jamie.
You're welcome. All right, if you flip to page 11, there's our bank balances as of March 18th versus the 4th. And then down below, we have March 18th, 2021 versus March 18th, 2020. An increase of about 936,000 year over year. Page 12 is our cash reserve analysis. So we are up to months in cash reserve right at 6.31, and our days in cash reserves 192. Keep in mind, we do have 3 ambulances on order that are approximately 702,000 that we'll have to pay out. So, you know, we have reached that 6-month mark right now, but there's some of it that's encumbered already. Any questions on that? Okay. Okay. So the check register starts on page 16. And I just wanted to point out a couple things on page 16. About halfway down, there's 3 deposit payee remote deposits in a row. The first one is just a regular deposit. The second one at $3,000 is the lease fees on the 16th Street property. And then the next one, 24,954.01, was an additional payment that Windsor made on some additional taxes they received. Was there any questions on anything else on the check register?
Jamie, that $3,000, and that was received on the 8th, and that's for this month.
That was for March, yes.
That's on.
Okay, and if you flip again on the billing report for the month of February, starts on page 19. If you look at page 20, you can see there some of those similar percentages that I showed you in that other billing report for the year of 2020. This is just for February 2021, but they also have everything since EMS MC took over billing. So you can see right there in the middle on the right-hand side, the average cash per trip was $353. The gross charge per trip was $1,235. And then our net charge per trip was about $855. And then up above there, cash per trip, there's a little chart there that shows you by payer what our average cash per trip is since July of 2020. And then there's also a breakdown of our payer mix. So currently, Medicaid and Medicaid managed care is about 18%. Patient is about 15%. So I don't know how much of our patients in that 15% would qualify for the Medicaid expansion. Excuse me. Any questions on that?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Jamie, on those first 4 numbers are in the trip count,
Which are you at?
on page 20.
Oh, yes.
I mean, obviously, those don't look right.
So these are only the numbers from when they billed. So they took over in July. So it's not the full year. Right.
All right.
It's not going to total what I had for the annual because they didn't bill for the entire year.
Yes.
And if I could, since we've gone over page 14, is Steve's Pest Control, is that a new vendor?
It is, and it isn't. Steve's Pest Control purchased Sun Equity, and we're going to go back to the bills here in just a second. Yeah, we're going to come back to the bills here in just a second. You're fine. You're fine. Any other questions on page 20 on the billing? The rest of this billing report, for the most part, is the details by payer for each month. But if you flip over to page 24, that gives you the breakdown of accounts receivable. And again, this is just with EMSMC. So since we've been with EMSMC, they don't know what the prior billing company has out there. They only have what they've done. You can see that there's 1.7 million in accounts receivable since July of last year. And then also on the patient side, that makes up 38% of our accounts receivable. Although billing's only 15%, accounts receivable is 38%. Any other questions on the billing report?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
not related to this billing company, but the other company that retains a portion of our billing, what would be the advantages of us moving those accounts over to this company? Would there be an advantage to that?
Go ahead.
And about how much do you think we have over there? I don't recall right off the bat.
It's the difference between this $8 million number and the $1.7 million number is the difference, is that we have receivables there. I don't know that there is any advantage because everything's been billed. So, I mean, I'm not sure that there's any advantage to moving anything.
So of that $7 million, it's probably sitting over there. There's probably not any big collection activity going on, is there probably?
We have been getting quite a bit from VA lately. That is all, for the most part, prior to July bills. I'm not sure what the deal is with that, but the VA's been processing like crazy lately. So I think I looked at a report the other day. We've gotten $40,000 or $50,000 this month alone from the VA, which I don't think we got that much for the entire year last year. So I don't know. They've put a new system in place, the VA has. So I don't know if that's allowing them to process all their backlog now, but I have noticed an increase in that. So, I mean, I think that's probably an outlier. I don't think that is the norm. Everything else is mostly probably by now is all deductibles and private pay portions.
That confuses me. Why would the VA owe us money if we billed them? Were they in the arrears?
Because they didn't process it. The VA was 2 years behind in processing.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Jamie, on other government payers, is the VA, would that be an example of other government payers?
I believe so. And I think TRICARE falls in there too. I haven't went through and figured out which category every single type falls under. But I think so. Well, no, that can't be right. Yeah, it might be. It's 13,000. That might be right for the VA and TRICARE. I'll have to research that a little bit more to see which payments fall in that other government payers category.
That'd be interesting. Thank you. That's a good question.
Okay. So that is the end of all of that. Now we'll go back to the bills. On page 13 is the summary, and 14 and 15 are the details. So yes, Steve's Pest Control took over Sun Equity. And you can see there's 2 months worth of bills in that. Sun Equity would bill us at the end of the month, and Steve's Pest Control bills us as soon as they finish the service. So as soon as they left headquarters, I had a bill in about 10 minutes. So it's just the different way the two companies bill. We're being charged the same for each location. It's just catch up of bills. And you can see here, we also have our first bill from Pettis County Joint Communications for March for $12,500. Any other questions on any of these bills? If not, that is the end of my report.
I did have,
Yes.
excuse me, I just had one more question. On page 16 and 7, well, mainly 17, there's a West Psychic CCC thing. What is that?
Tell me again which one you're looking at?
Of the fourth one down on page 17, the first deposit, Wisconsin Psychic.
It's
No?
it's health insurance, Wisconsin. That's
Okay.
usually TRICARE. So WPS is what it is. WPS is our MAC. So they process all of our Medicare, and then they also do some of the TRICAREs.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Are there any other questions? If not, I will take a motion to approve payment of the bills.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Dr. Gus is attending a conference and he's not available. He had no updates to send to us. So we'll move on to unfinished business, the work comp proposal.
Page 42 is a summary of both proposals presented to us. So both IBG and Mike Keith both provided us updated numbers with our updated wage numbers due to the increase in wages for the year. So IBG's total proposal is $100,975.29. And again, that's based on wages. So that can fluctuate based on our wages. And then Mike Keith insurance was $129,248.57. Did you gentlemen want to talk about your proposals at all?
I would just open it up to if there's any questions. I don't want you guys longer than what you have to be, but and gals. But I certainly we increased the payroll about 116,000 to match the adjustments. Really, otherwise we didn't have any other changes on our proposal than when we spoke a few weeks ago.
Brendan, I did have one question. If you look at your proposal versus Mike Keith's proposal, and you probably don't have both of them in front of you, you had MEM had a Missouri second injury fund, and then Benchmark had a second injury supplemental surcharge. I don't know what the difference is between the two, and maybe Christian's there too. I don't know what that additional charge.
Yeah, so ours just has the second injury fund, which essentially is in place. It compensates injured employees when a current work-related injury combines with a prior disability. That's I can't speak to what's on Christians, but that's the surcharge on, and that's on every MEM policy. That second injury fund.
I can't answer that, Jamie. I would have to find out. I don't know if that's an additional charge due to presumptive cancer or presumptive COVID. I don't know, but I can't get an answer for you.
Okay, I just noticed that was a difference. I didn't know if it was just a difference in presentation or an actual difference.
Well, certainly. What was it called on their proposal? Or you're welcome to shoot it to me, Jamie, if you'd like.
It's second injury supplemental surcharge.
I would guess. I mean, yeah, I would guess that's what it is, but I'll check. Okay.
I can address the board.
Yes.
Thank you all for giving us an opportunity to come here and speak again. I'm not the low bidder tonight. I would like to point out that our proposal with the increased premiums, I think we're still $17,365 less than what we paid last year. And the goal that we would have, my original goal was to get you guys in the best tiered program. And I've talked a couple different times about the rates per 100. So the rate per 100 that we've got with the program that you qualified for this year is $5.31. And when you factor all those, you can see that in the proposal, once you put all the factors to it, the experience mod credit, you've got a large premium discount. Ultimately, my premium comes out to $129,248. But as soon as I can get you qualified for the better tier, that's a $3.92 rate per 100. That's a pretty big difference when we're talking about millions of dollars in payroll. And just my rough scratching here while I was sitting down, without applying the schedule, modified schedule credit, which all insurance companies, and some of you guys that have businesses or maybe you've dealt with this before, on the P&C side, we call them IRPMs. They're scheduled premium credits. They can go up 25% or they can go down 25% based on the underwriter's attitude that day, or based on some risk management or how your account has been performing over the previous 5 years. If you've been performing really poorly, you could expect they're going to debit you up to 25%. If you've been performing really well, they can add a 25% credit to your account. So when I gave you those $3.92 rate a minute ago, and I did some rough figuring, I gave you the large premium discount, and then a little bit of a credit for the 0.97 experience mod you got, I come out just under $90,000. That's before they even have the extra 25% that they can apply to you because you're doing risk management strategies. So one of the things that we do with you all, or would do with you all, would be look at the losses that you're having, implement return to work, recover at work, and you may be doing some of those things now, and then continue to try to help you manage your work comp experience rather than just have everybody come to work, somebody gets hurt, you turn it in, and we see where it turns out. Those days are gone. Now you, as the employers, have control over where that individual goes to the doctor. You can choose their doctor. You can choose someone who specializes in work comp injuries so we can get them back to work as soon as possible. Making sure we get them back to work before 72 hours or 3 of their regular days that they would work, so that it stays medical only rather than going into indemnity. As soon as the claim goes into indemnity, 100% of that loss counts towards your experience mod. Med only, we can reduce the overall cost of that claim by 70%. So we have strategies that we'd like to work with you guys. And even though I'm not the low bidder, if you were to select us at 127 or 129,000, my goal would be to work with you next year and the year after that, and to get you qualified for this better program as soon as possible. Nobody else is going to be able to bring this program to you other than our firm or the guy over in St. Louis who's running this thing. There's no other independent agents in our footprint that have access to this.
I would like to interject there for a moment, Christian. We do have access to that. I don't know if it's 7710. I don't want you guys to be misled, but we certainly have access to that program. It wasn't the most competitive this year, but I just want you guys to realize that.
I'll get you a letter this week that confirms that if you guys want to go with 7710, you're going to have to go through our firm. I was just on the phone with the guy outside that runs the program, and he's got a complete exclusive on the entire state. It's either him, he's got maybe one other broker in Kansas City, one in South Missouri, but we're the only one that runs this territory. So I can get a letter to that effect before the end of the week.
One question, with regard to this program you're talking about, where you can maybe provide us some future savings, is it also the possibility that we choose a higher bid in lieu of maybe being safer and reducing our work comp exposure, that it could go the opposite way and it could cause additional exposure to the district? Is that also possible with that sliding scale you thing you talked about?
You're saying if you chose us,
Could the number also go up?
it can always go up.
Okay, that's what I'm
It
saying.
can
So,
always, I mean, if for some reason we have really bad luck, and you could be doing everything right.
Correct.
If you have really bad luck,
understand.
but studies have shown that by trying to manage those claims, first of all, it's creating a culture within the organization that we're gonna report every claim right away. You guys are gonna know about it. There's gonna be an injury report that we're gonna fill out, that we're gonna manage those claims, and that you guys are gonna have more control over it than maybe you've ever had before. And then once you do have a claim, depending on the severity of it, knowing that, you know, they don't start hitting your experience mod until the following year. Claims are always gonna tail, they don't, so anything that happens to you in 2021 won't go on your mod until 2023. It won't hit next year, it'll hit the following year. And I think the reason that they do that is to make sure that they've got enough window to get a claim closed. So as soon as we can get that thing closed, we're gonna work with you guys to try to get those claims closed before your unit stat card gets filed with NCCI. That happens 180 days after your renewal. So you guys renewed 4/1, whatever 180 days is, you look at, well, really 90 days in, you would start looking at the open claims that you have. You only have 2 right now. Those are back from 17 and 18. My team has already taken a look at those. Those are when you were actually with our firm, but those claims have gone into litigation and they should settle sometime at the end of May. So knowing the process and knowing exactly when to implement, how to take control of your claims, and it can make all the difference in the world. Your minimum mod is actually a 0.65, which means, and you're at a 0.97. So if you're at a 0.65, that means you're paying 32% more than you could be. But to get to that 0.65, you would have had to have 4 years, 3 years of no claims.
Demonstrated good.
Right.
Good safety. But again, I just want to make it clear that, I mean, you know, if we were to stay on course and do all those good things to have a safe workplace and environment and practice all those good things, we could do better, but in essence, true, just because of the nature of accidents happen, it could also go up. And that's just, I just want to make sure that I understand that.
You're right.
Okay.
Just like with July of 19, you know, the guy runs through I mean, you can't prevent those things, but what we can do is direct the care. And for the individuals that got injured, you know, direct the care and manage those claims, get a nurse case manager on those claims and try to minimize them.
On the health side
On the work comp side.
and the health side, it would eventually flow over to. It's
It
something.
happens in work comp. Yeah, the same thing, like you need a nurse case manager on your larger health insurance claims, non-work related. You know, it just happens while they're, you know, driving personally, not on the job.
Correct. Very good.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
my question is actually for Jamie. It seems like one of the factors in both of these is based upon salary or total wages. Is that as of 12/31/2020? Use those wages, or did we factor in the 4% increase for, in other words, are they both using the same numbers?
Yes, they're both using the same numbers. They both factored in the 4% increase and provide us that's what these numbers are here.
Are there any other questions? Do you have a recommendation for us, Jamie?
I know that Roy's dealt with the work comp claims in the past, and we've been very happy with MEM. And, you know, to go with the lower one this year, I think would be what we should do. I mean, we've been bidding this out annually. So, I mean, we can bid it out again next year and see if we can get a lower rate next year.
Mr. Chairman, just have a discussion. I mean, if there's a possibility that we could save money in the future on our work comp by demonstrating with one company. I don't know, does the law require us to bid this every year?
No, we're not required to bid it every year.
A lot of times we bid out our other things beyond that. So maybe the board ought to have a discussion, a thought process of bidding this out. If indeed we could realize some savings by staying with one company, I don't know if that's possible. So it's just a thought process. Thank you.
Yeah,
So your recommendations to stay with IBG.
I'm sorry, there was another sound.
Your recommendations to stay with IBG.
Yes.
and Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
may I make comment before? I just want to thank you guys, but at the same token, not bidding out the insurance every year. We're still going to look at that as your broker every year and determine the best market. And so we can market this insurance program internally. So even if you don't go out for a formal RFP, I believe the bid specs even said every 6 years, but that's still up to you for clarification or for whatever you'd like to do. We would still, on an as-needed basis, bid that out internally. If it warranted that. So I just wanted to make that comment, so you guys know you're not just locked in just because you don't bid it every year. We would still market that internally as your competent and independent agency. So, thank you, though.
If I could add one more thing, I would echo Brendan's comment there, that as an insurance broker, when you guys bid out every year, I know you don't intend this, but essentially what you're telling your current broker is that you're considering firing them. So, and the insurance company. And what ends up happening is if you go to the same insurance companies every year and they don't ever win your business, they eventually give up. And then if you're getting an adverse, initially for the first 5 years by bidding it every year, you'll see there's gonna be people fighting for your business. But over time, if any of you have ever been in the bid business and you've got somebody who's asked you to bid on whatever it is, if you're in construction or whatever you're doing, and the 10th year in a row, they call you up and say, hey, old good buddy, why don't you come give me a bid again? And there's about 99% chance you're not gonna get it. How motivated are you gonna get? So I would suggest you pick the broker that you think is the most qualified. You would go out for an RFQ versus an RFP. An RFQ would be a request for qualifications. An RFP is a request for proposal. When you do a request for proposal, you're kind of subject to taking the lowest bidder, but the lowest bidder may not be the most qualified broker to represent the programs for you. And then on an annual basis, you don't have to have anything written in stone. You can fire your broker at any point, but they're going to work a lot harder for you, whether it's me or whether it's Brendan. If we know that you're going to make a commitment to us, a verbal commitment, not a written commitment, but a verbal commitment that you're going to let me manage your work or your insurance for the next 3 years. Now, if something goes really screwy and the premiums go way high, I'm going to know about it ahead of time. We'll be out ahead of it. I'm not just going to show up and deliver some big increase. That's a good way to get fired, right? So if I'm managing your insurance program behind the scenes, then maybe you don't need to go through this process every year and have insurance brokers arguing about who's better, and you guys can select the most qualified broker on a multi-year rotation. That would be my suggestion. It's worked out really well for a lot of our clients.
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree.
Are there any further questions? I would ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we accept the low bid IBG, 100,975.29.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you all very much. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Kristen.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Brennan.
Thank you all.
We move on to the sunshine law discussion. In the packet, there's a memo that Mr. Foster sent. Mr. Foster handled Zoom call with us, and they addressed each of those questions that were raised, and they both agreed on the. Mr. Foster was volunteered to send a memo.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, with the, you know, the gravity of this letter and things that were said in public meeting here, I ask that our secretary read this letter in its entirety and it be made part of our record.
To read that.
Okay. Let me start with the fact pattern. The Pettis County Ambulance District met on February 23rd, 2021. The agenda was properly posted. Unexpectedly, after the posting for the meeting, the collective bargaining agreement became potentially capable of being finalized. The collective bargaining agreement had been under negotiation for a year. The agenda was amended by motion and a second to handle a collective bargaining discussion in closed session per 610.0219 RSMo, with one board member saying or voting no. An affirmative indication, but not a formal vote, occurred while in closed session. In the interest of transparency, the board voted in open session to approve the collective bargaining agreement with one no vote, Mr. Meehan. The media, the Sedalia Democrat, anticipating no further action after the closed session, unfortunately had left the meeting. Mr. Meehan at the March 9, 2021 meeting, exercising his legitimate rights under 610.022.6, voiced concerns about a possible sunshine law violation because of the precipitous change in agenda and with collective bargaining agreement released somewhat surreptitiously after the media had left the meeting. Legal question number one, did the board have the authority to amend the agenda without the usual 24-hour plus advance notice? That's from 610.020.2 in the Missouri statutes. And the answer is yes. Tentative agendas. Section 610.021.1 requires that the public body post a tentative agenda reasonably calculated to appraise the public of the things anticipated to be discussed. An absolute appraisal is not required. The doctrine of prior restraint on speech. Representatives from the Missouri Attorney General's Office Sunshine Law Division have informally expressed the view if the Sunshine Law were to impose an absolute appraisement standard as opposed to a mere reasonable one, such a requirement would likely be a prior restraint on free speech. Prior restraint on speech, particularly government policy speech, has been deeply disfavored since the landmark decision of U.S. Supreme Court in the case Neer versus Minnesota, 283 U.S. 697 in 1931. The plain meaning rule. The axiom of statutory construction, known as the plain meaning rule, requires that words, unless technical in nature or specifically defined in the statute, be ascribed their ordinary and everyday meaning to effectuate the legislative intent, which is in the Missouri Digest statutes and the countless cases cited therein in section 1.090 in the Missouri statutes. Tentative defined. Tentative is defined in Merriam-Webster's Collegiate Dictionary, 10th edition, quote, as not fully worked out or developed, end quote. In Ruget's college thesaurus, the synonyms for tentative are, quote, experimental, provisional, conditional, or temporary, end quote. Legislative intent. So it is clear the General Assembly did not want to impose an absolute appraisement for body public agendas, which otherwise would impose a prior restraint on political speech. The legislative intent is the most fundamental axiom of statutory construction, and the countless cases cited therein. That's from Missouri Digest, second statutes key 181.1. Public policy speech, especially protected. Speech has various levels of protection depending upon context. Political policy speech being the most protected. First Amendment speech is a fundamental right, and therefore its regulation must undergo close scrutiny, and any limitation thereon must be justified by a compelling governmental interest. Hence, the Sunshine Law required only reasonable appraisement to the public, and the agenda is tentative so as to not cut off important policy discussions and deliberations. 2, legal question number 2. Did the board commit a Sunshine Law error by approving the collective bargaining agreement in open session? Answer, no. The board could have approved the collective bargaining contract in closed session pursuant of 610.015 and 610.0219 in the Missouri statutes. However, in the interest of transparency, the board approved the collective bargaining agreement in open session, thereby fulfilling the very purpose of the Sunshine Law, which is presumed openness and transparency. 610.011.1 of the Missouri statutes. 3, legal question 3. Did the Sunshine Law require a more immediate release of the collective bargaining agreement or drafts thereof? Answer, no. While still not officially approved and finalized, a negotiated labor contract can be closed pursuant of 610.0219. Documents related to a negotiated contract do not have to be released until the contract is executed per 610.021.12, and the video of the open portion of the meeting was posted online. After a 2-hour discussion of the collective bargaining agreement in closed session, the board concluded that it was appropriate and necessary not to discuss the agreement further in open session because although approved by the board, the agreement had not yet been executed yet by the union representatives, and therefore the agreement's contents were still a closed record per 610.021.9 and 12. Conclusion. The General Assembly intended that public body agendas be only tentative so that they could be readily amended when in public's interest to do so. The approval of the collective bargaining agreement was done in open session to further openness and transparency. The collective bargaining agreement was made readily available to the public once finalized, approved, and actually executed. No Sunshine Law violations occurred.
I believe Mr. Foster is available if there are any further questions that he did not answer.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I don't know that I have any questions. For him, it's still maybe in my own mind. But on page 66, as our secretary read, and under tentative agendas, anticipated to be discussed. you know, sitting here and how this kind of all came about and having him right beside me almost, it was hard for me not to believe that this was an anticipated act, that it would go into open session to be voted on. And if the attorney representing us for the agreement had anticipated that, then I would think that that would have been, we would have made sure that that would have been on our open agenda at the very beginning of the meeting versus changing it at the tail end. And maybe I misunderstood that, but that's the reason I felt like we rushed into that, because he already had in his mind how it was going to happen. And I saw you as the chairman just kind of unsure about all that. The other piece was on page 67 under item 3. At halfway through that, it says the board concluded that it was appropriate and necessary not to discuss the agreement further in open session. I don't recall the board having any input in that statement there at all. And then one last thing was the very end of this. It says, second maybe to the last sentence in there, the collective bargaining agreement was made available to the public once finalized, approved, and actually executed. And I still don't know how and when that was done. So do we have an answer to that?
It's required that the agreement's available on request. It's not required that it's actually posted.
I see.
That was both of theirs interpretation of the meeting. That it's not required that you post them. You can, but it's not required. But if somebody comes and requests it,
And so why would we not want to post it then? I mean, if we're all about, you know, making sure that the public is informed here, why would we not want to post that? See the reason not to.
yeah, I don't know that there is a reason not to now that it's been executed by both parties.
And all of this was based upon the sunshine law, and how about the Robert's Rule of Order that, you know, the board adopted? Was there anything out of order with any of that? And who did we get counsel with on that?
Well, the Robert's Rules of Order would have to follow the sunshine law.
I see. Well, you've indicated there, Mr. Chairman, that you've spent some time with the attorneys, and I appreciate your time and of course theirs. I still felt like it was rushed through, and it should have been discussed more in open session, because now the agreement is not, you know, posted like everything else is. You have to actually specifically request it. So I don't think that's showing openness, but I do appreciate your time that you spent with the attorneys, and of course the attorneys' time coming up with their opinions of the sunshine.
And they're both of their opinions. It should not have been discussed in open session since the union had not ratified. So it's not.
So maybe we should have talked about it tonight then, since it's been ratified. And we should talk about the items within that agreement.
And if there's no problem with posting that, the board requests posted. That's not a problem at all. But typical guidelines isn't available upon request.
Well, and so let me ask one follow-up then with that then. the typical patron in our district, then you might not even know that there is a labor union and that there was an agreement without, so why would they even ask for one? I guess is another question. So and so I guess that gets back to the point that, you know, why would we be hesitant about posting it?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know where he's going. No one is hesitant about this labor agreement being released now that all parties have signed the agreement. So if he can't get past the fact that the agreement could not be discussed at the time he's speaking of, because the other party had not executed their portion of the agreement, and we did so at the advice of an attorney, if he can't get past that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask this discussion just cease about this. It's just, I don't know where he's getting at. I know I'm not supposed to talk to him, but this is ridiculous.
Mr. Chairman, since you seem open to that it ought to be, that we could post it, I think we post it. That would be my suggestion.
I agree.
That's fine. There's no reason not to. It's just-
Okay.
Right, and Mr. Chairman, I've even invited the media to come and speak with us. This is the very first labor agreement that we've reached with our employees, and I think it's something that should be amended to hard work for a lot of people that worked on this. So, you know, I know the reason we're here, and a lot of us know the reason we're here even discussing this issue, and I'll leave it at that.
Go ahead and post the agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Move on to bay window replacements.
Nothing. We're stuck. This is it. Mark's glass has been out once, maybe Dugan's has been out twice. I'm not real sure, but they're being processed for replacement on the front windows from the bathroom east.
Is that bids being processed or is that?
Yes. Yeah. Good.
Decommissioned equipment, reserve price for sale unit 7. And Eric was supposed to have something. I don't know. Is Roy still on?
Yeah, I'm still here. I don't have anything concrete for you guys. The only thing I know that we've done is we researched some ambulances that had motors out that were for sale about the same year and model of what the truck we have. And they're going for about $1,000 on the Gov Deals bid site. So
Is it a bad motor?
yeah, it's got a bad motor in it.
I mean, the ones for 1,000, that's with the bad motor.
Yeah, that's with the bad motor.
Do we need to have a base price or?
Yeah.
we just-
We basically just need to set I need you guys to set a reserve price that we can go ahead and get pictures taken and get it listed. Like I said, the $1,000 is about what I've seen with and those are actually for ambulances that would probably go for a little bit more than what our truck would go for, because they were the heavy duty Freightliner chassis and whatnot, but that's beside the point. I think, in my opinion, 1,000 is a decent price. I mean, I wish it could be higher, obviously, but I don't want to post it and then not get anybody to take it. So
we don't need it to stay around. It needs to go.
yeah, it needs to go, and it's going to be right around $9,000 to put a new motor in it. And to be honest with you, the trade-in offer we got on the truck to replace it was $7,500. We might, if we listed it and it was in good running condition, get $10,000 out of it. So I mean, it's just, at the end of the day, it's not really worth trying to fix it.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, are there any board members that know what the scrap price would be for? I mean, there's a lot of metal in that thing, isn't there? I don't know what scrap is going for, but anyone know? Yeah, no, we have it.
Some SUVs up too, so.
I think it's actually kind of cleaner though, if we put it on gut deals and take the bid.
Sure.
Oh, instead of just scrapping it.
Yeah.
Okay. Just curious. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to the board to consider putting $1,000 on the old unit 7 with a floor of $500. That on .gov. And what is the term we put it on there for? Is it just, is there a term of time?
Ryan, can you speak to that? You probably speak to that a little better than I can.
Let's say you do it for 6 months, but it's been 2 years since it was in the government, we change the rules.
Sure.
But I can track it on there for the next amount of time. It's all that.
There's really,
And there's no cost to doing that, pretty much limited cost.
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes.
didn't hear a second, so I guess I was just throwing it out to, is there another small, or is there a small ambulance district out there that we would have contact with through our associations that we could maybe, offer to another ambulance, small ambulance district? Is there any way of marketing in that?
So it stays all nice and
They go, if they're looking for something, they're going to go deals.
everybody's kind of more on gut deals, keeps us from getting unsig with it. So,
and your motion was a $500 floor.
Correct. $1,000 with 500 floor.
Well, the 1,000, it'll be up for bid, so the floor is really all we're concerned
This is-
with.
Okay, 500 floor.
Is there a second to the 500 floor on the decommissioned unit? I'll second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And approval to sell the fridge and the stove top from TT Station. And it will be the gut deals thing as well, right?
I believe we're looking to do it that way. It's almost going to check into some other. But it feels pretty well.
Do you have some kind of base price on that, Roy?
No, we've been researching it and I honestly don't have those numbers in front of me. I don't recall finding anything that we could compare it to. But we'll keep looking. If you guys don't mind tabling it till the next meeting, we can revisit it then. And by then we surely should have some information for you guys. And the same would go with the camper shell as well.
Yes.
Didn't I, Mr. Chairman, didn't I understand that there wasn't anything wrong with the units there? They just were the wrong size, or they weren't, the ice maker wasn't working or something, a minor situation? Do we know why?
There's nothing wrong with those. The problem is that the refrigerator was bought without a freezer and the stove was bought without an oven. So that was the issue. And we know what we can anticipate to get out of them. We just need to figure out what a good base price for each item would be. And Jamie could probably speak to what we anticipated to gain out of selling those items, and we could probably use that as the base, but
What was it?
I think so.
Yeah, I'm looking. Sorry, I had the budget open a minute ago and I just shut it. I thought we were done with that part. So let me get back there. Just take a second. I want to say 3,000, but let me get to it.
that's
So
right.
we had just guesstimated the sale of the range and the refrigerator at $2,000. I mean, I don't know. I don't deal in commercial appliances, obviously, so I don't know, but that's what we had estimated on the budget.
For the pair.
For both of them, yes.
I would make the motion then if that's what was in our budget or wherever, that we set it at $2,000 and see what happens. I mean, at least that gives them something to go with now.
To move forward.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Chairman, Jamie, or Roy, are these commercial units?
Yes, sir.
They would work in a restaurant?
Yep.
Yep.
There's some used restaurant places around that might be interested if they know about it.
Right, and if I may, Mr. Chairman, just well, I appreciate everybody's ideas of trying to bring together the best way to maximize the dollars from the taxpayer. We are bound by some policies and rules about excess property as far as an entity. So we have to be careful of how we dispose of property. So I just.
So that's what we use Gov?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
Anybody can bid, you or I, or anybody can bid. on
Yeah, and I think people that might be opening a restaurant on the spring.
Right, and to suggest to them to
Yeah.
check up because we have some good, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
is there any reason we couldn't donate to that to the church or something? Or is there a reason for that?
Yeah, that, again, it
I
comes down
thought
to,
so.
right, district excess property. Right.
kind of showing favoritism if you don't make.
So I would second Mr. Meehan's motion.
Okay, we have a motion and second.
Can I clarify? Is it $1,000 per each item or 2,000 in total? I have no idea what each one goes for, so I don't know that we want to
Motion.
compare.
2,000 for the pair.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Excuse me, Roy, you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Let's, while the board's in the mood here, let's do something with this camper shell. This camper shell was purchased to go on Chief Dirk's vehicle. It hadn't worked out as far as the utility of his vehicle. The shell has been sitting in the back of the East Bay. And it's kind of in the way, and Chief Dirk would like permission to get as much dollars out of this as he could, so he could buy a toolbox and put in the back of his vehicle. Real set. And he's been wanting to get rid of this thing a long time, so if the board's in the mood, I invite you to put a figure on this camper shell that fits. What Dodge year is that?
It's the 2014.
2014 Dodge.
The camper shell's been sitting in the storage bay for, well, the previous administration took it off and put it back there in 2015. So that's how long it's been there.
Do you have a base price idea?
I don't. I mean, if I were to guess, it's in decent shape. I don't know what camper shells go for. I've never honestly bought one. So I know toolboxes go for, I mean, well, I bought one for my personal vehicle. It was $400. So I don't know. I don't know what to anticipate. That was one of the other things that I was kind of waiting to hear from him on, was what he thought that he could get, or we could get out of that, so you don't want to overprice it on there, but
$200, probably what's worth, I guess. But I mean, that's a guess.
So $400.
I've never seen it, don't know anything about it, but
Camera shell's just not very popular anymore. So is that a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Or do we have a second for that?
I'll second that.
Is there any further discussion on that? If not, all in favor, say aye. All opposed, same sign. Take a motion to go into closed session pursuant RSMo 610.021, section 2.
Second.
All in favor, and there'll be roll call.
Brown,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Turkey,
Yes.